மறக்காம சர்ப்ரைஸ் பண்ணுங்க. Thank you.
We're moving to another material imbalance, which is not very commonly used, but it's good to know. It is the queen which is fighting the free light pieces. Queen versus free light pieces is usually considered to be better for the light pieces because the pieces can easily cooperate in between themselves, and they can create threats which the queen is not capable of. She is not. It cannot separate into many parts. Imagine for a moment that a knight and a bishop are attacking one pawn and the queen is defending it. It doesn't really matter for the pawn. We can still take it. It's for free. Or even if the king and the queen is defending it, it also doesn't matter because we're taking it. The queen cannot be traded for the two light pieces. Well, there are also some exceptions in which the queen is better. Usually this is in the middle game, and if there are some weaknesses, if there are pass pawns, and if there is a weak king in the opponent's camp, but we'll be talking about them later. First of all, let's have a look at the demonstration in which the light pieces are better than the queen. This is the game between Anand with the white pieces against Ye. In this situation, Ye played the move bishop e6 instead of the correct knight g4, which was giving him very good chances of equalization after takes, and then the knight can easily come back on f6 after castling. But instead of that, he decided to win a tempo, and he allowed a chance to his opponent to give the queen for the free light pieces, which he immediately used, of course. After bishop b3, f takes e7, black has to take it. He took it with the queen, and a takes b3. This is the position that arose. Black has a pawn for the queen, but this doesn't really matter that much in this situation. What white does at first is to, of course, finish the development and to bring his pieces out. Knight c3, queen e6, bishop e3, queen f5, and then he goes rook a c1. Okay, he had to defend his pawn, but next he is unwinding his pieces. He will play rook d1, rook d2 to defend the pawn in a more useful way. The rook would be working on the half open file, and after that he will be releasing this rook to come and to attack the weakness on a6. Black reacted with rook f to e8, rook f d1, rook e b8, and okay, rook d2 and rook e1. The plan that we have mentioned is still good, but knight d5 was played in the game, which is not bad neither. Queen to c8, knight d2, and little by little white is occupying some good squares with his pieces in the center. He wants to further on improve his position. He wants to play rook a1, double the rooks and try to win this pawn, or he wants to bring further knight on c4. That's the unpleasant thing about defending positions like that with the queen. There are no clear targets to attack and no clear ways of getting rid with these pieces. Whenever the defender starts advancing the pawns, he's uncovering some further weaknesses in his camp, like it was here after c6. Probably it was a bit better to play rook e6, but even in that case, after knight c4, say h6, rook e1, white is having the advantage. Like I said, he can double the rooks on the a file and to take the pawn on a6 later, and one by one the black pawns will disappear. Okay, but the move c6 that was played in the game was answered knight c3. Now the pawn on d6 is a weakness. It cannot go any further because the one on c5 would be hanging. Rook e6, knight d to e4 was played, and after queen f8, white already has a chance for a combination. He's attacking the pawn on d6 with two of his pieces, but this bishop is ready to join the attack, and this is what Anand does. He's taking on d6 with the rook, making use of the fact that rook takes d6 would be answered bishop c5, and white is winning not one but actually two pawns, as rook d8 would be answered knight d6, and once again another piece is coming to help the bishop on c5 to win the rook on d6. That will be a clear win for white. So after d6, rook takes d6, black defended with rook takes e4 instead. knight takes e4, and he found the move f5. Note also that rook e8 isn't helping here because of the simple bishop takes c5, and after rook takes e4, rook e6 is transposing into an endgame that we already know, where the two rooks are obviously better than the queen. They will be soon coordinated against the black pawns on a6 and c6, and white would be winning this one easily. Plus he has a pawn for the rooks with the rooks, so this should be clearly winning. But the move f5 was answered. Rook takes c6, f takes e4, rook takes a6. Now we are going into another imbalance, which we will be covering. I'll be covering in some clips with bishop, rook, and here we have two pawns for the queen. That particular one is easily won for white, as there are a couple of weaknesses on e4 and c5, and they would be lost in the near future. c4 was in fact played. One of them is given away straight away. B takes c4. Now white has a strong passer. If rook b2, that pawn will go for it on c5. Queen c8 was played instead of that. Rook e2. Queen takes c4, b3, queen c3. Now first of all, the coordination has to be repaired. Rook c4, queen e5, and a strong move is rook c5 now, intending to push the pawns later. Queen a3, rook d1, h6, some final preparation, so there are no back rank checkmate ideas. King h7, and in the game Anand played rook c7 and he converted the advantage this way. Another way is to go rook b5 and then to push the pawns one by one like that. The rook will be supporting them, and also the bishop, and this rook can be used into the attack against the pawn on g7. But okay, rook c7 is a good enough move. Rook e6, rook d to d7 is attacking the pawn on g7. White is combining the ideas of an attack, and he also wants to push the b pawn eventually. Bishop d4, h5 was played because queen c1. Both the opponents saw that then after king h2, check g3 and rook takes g3, which is seemingly giving a draw because of the perpetual check. White has this strong move, rook d7, and the combination is spoiled as the queen will have to move away, and again it will have to move away, thus letting a whole rook for white. So after bishop d4, h5 was played, and here is the only moment in which Anand could have played really much better. Instead of the natural rook takes g7, which he played and which won the game also, he could have won with king h2 first, and say after queen c1 only to take here, and this time if king h6 the queen would be lost, while if the king goes on h8, then everything is lost, everything is hanging. White can do whatever he likes. And if in this line on move number 38, after king h2, if black tries a move like king h6, then bishop e3 would be the answer, followed by rook c5. That pawn would be lost, and black would be losing anyway. But okay, once again, rook takes g7, even though not the best move, was still enough for a win. After rook g7, king h6, rook b7, queen c1 check, king h2. There was no perpetual check. Queen takes c2, bishop e3 check, king h6, king g6, sorry, rook b6 check, king f5, h4, securing some squares for the king, check, king h3, queen d7. That pawn finally moved, and it decided the outcome of the game. Black can do nothing on the king side, and if he can do nothing on the king side, this pawn is moving forward. Well, the only thing is that white doesn't need to allow this king to come too close on f1 or on f3, as after that there might be some checkmate ideas coming. Simply king to g2, queen f5. Now white is chasing away this king, and he goes b5. The first rank is also defended. Queen to b5, rook c7, the pawn goes further, queen e5, check, king d1 check, king e2, and the rook. Whenever the rook is stepping behind the pawn, everything is over. The pawn goes on b7, bishop on f4, and this was the moment in which black resigned. So whenever you're having the free light pieces against the queen, the easiest thing for you to do is to try and to combine their efforts, to put them on good squares from where they're attacking the pawns, and to force the opponent to move the pawns further and to create weaknesses which you further take.
மறக்காம சர்ப்ரைஸ் பண்ணுங்க. Thank you.